American politics right now. We're getting snapshots. We're getting edited highlights. We're seeing some very emotional topics being discussed, and some big business moves also. So, what's your take on what's going on? Trump's been in there 2 years. How's it working out?
Well, from the point of view of my business, is working out quite well, but we're increasingly polarized, bipartisan. So if anything, that's increased, although it was significant during the Obama years. You have the left and the right, and they really don't see eye to eye. Totally different philosophies. The left is becoming increasingly socialist, which is anathema to a significant portion of Americans who are capitalists and conservatives. So, and what's really going on is the two-party system, it appears to be starting to break down in the U.S., which I think one of the problems with the U.S. is the two-party system. But I could throw this to you too and say, what's going on in the UK right now? I see very similar things going on with
Mickey. I wish we knew, but if I may just carry on, because I noticed on your wall behind you, you've got I think you've got Barack Obama, you've got Hillary Clinton, and looks like a Doberman or a Rottweiler on opposite sides of the wall. Is that symbolic of your views of politics?
I'll start with the first. The dog is a calendar that my girlfriend gave me for Christmas, so the dog changes every month. But on my left shoulder is a recounting of the Uranium One scandal in the U.S. And that's what that's all about. And
Right.
and for those who are not familiar, during the Obama administration, when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, 20% of the U.S. uranium production capacity was sold to Rosatom, the Russian national uranium company. And that's a sore spot amongst a bunch of people in the country. And it should have been stopped, and it wasn't. It can be argued that it was not stopped because of $145+ million donated to the Clinton Foundation. So, bit of a scandal there.
Right. One which shall run and run, and one which I'm not going to get into. But it does lead us on quite nicely to what's happened since we last spoke. We last spoke, we talked about gold, copper, uranium. So let's talk about uranium. First of all, let's start with the 232 component. What was your take on that? Clearly, some people argued national security issue. That was the main thrust of the argument. It nearly got there, not quite. How did you read it?
Well, I think Trump took a punt on it. It was fourth down. I use an American football analogy. It was fourth down, and he punted, and now we're in overtime. So he agreed with the Secretary of Commerce that it was a national security issue, but he did nothing about it except extend the decision process or the action process for another 90 days with a study of the whole nuclear cycle capability in the U.S. versus the original petition, which was only about domestic uranium mining, and that was started by a couple of domestic uranium producers. So the market for uranium spot price, like that, it forced utilities who had been putting off buying on the spot market. It stimulated some buying, so the price went up about 10% or so, still very low. But what it did do was it cratered the uranium equities, specifically U.S. domestic producers and developers lost about 40% of their market caps in a day or two. And in my opinion, that presents buying opportunities of those equities.
I would agree that it probably does present some kind of opportunity for investors, certainly to look at those companies, and if they like what they see. Yeah. But let's just finish off on that. Do you think anything's going to happen as a result of the 90-day working group? They did have
Oh, yes, I fully expect some concrete actions by the Trump administration in 90 days. Now, let me say, a couple of days before this was to come out, the decision was to come out on July 14th. I went on record and I gave four possible scenarios of what I thought Trump might do, and all four of those scenarios were wrong because he took a punt. He did nothing except extend for 90 days and said we're going to study it some more. So,
but study what? What are they going to study that they didn't already know?
well, it was really concentrated originally toward the domestic mining of uranium, and by in a petition put forth by two producers, and they are basically asking for some sort of support through the U.S. government, be that through tariffs or quotas, maybe subsidies, et cetera, et cetera. So he punted on that portion of it and said, let's step back and let's look at the entire mine to market capability of the United States. For instance, even though our uranium mining industry is devastated, it is basically not relevant right now. We also do not have upgrading enrichment facilities that are sufficient. We're dependent on the Russians for some enrichment. So it really makes sense what he did. It was not what the market expected. The market was disappointed. I was disappointed. CEOs of uranium companies were disappointed, but it's there's light, hopefully light at the end of the tunnel on this.
Still on the topic of America, Chinese tariffs. Good thing, bad thing?
Ultimately, I think it's not particularly good for business. It means Americans pay 10% more on a lot of use an Indonesian term, Chinese gigas. So things that we buy at Walmart that we maybe don't really need, but it is going to increase prices for Americans with some consumer goods, not big durable goods, but certainly consumer goods this next round. But the Chinese are balking, they're delaying, and Trump's put another bullet in the gun, if you will, and threatened another shot across the bow. I'm on record over and over again and saying that I think the Chinese need the United States more than we need the Chinese. And so this is a pun, but we have the Trump card here, and we haven't played that Trump card yet.
Isn't this something that Trump's done on, at least a couple of other occasions with China?
Absolutely.
Already?
Absolutely.
But is that a one-trick pony? Are there more subtle ways?
I think there's other things he can do, and I think
like
he's willing to do them. Put quotas on things. He came out this morning or yesterday. China declared that the Chinese are manipulating their currency, which obviously they are. So that puts on some world pressure, presumably to force China not to continue to devalue the yuan, which they did. That's now above 7, and we all know it's a managed currency to begin with. It does not float freely on world markets as opposed to most currencies. So,
but you use all tools available to you, don't you, Mickey? And if that's one of their tools they're going to use, it's nothing that the US wouldn't do in the same position, surely.
Well, I think so. So your point's well taken there. I can argue that all markets are manipulated to some degree, and they are. So it becomes, I think, a point of which economy is going to be damaged the most. And I will argue that Chinese economy has been significantly damaged by these trade tariffs. And has the U.S. economy? I don't know. Well, the markets are way down over the last couple of days. I'm looking right now. The Dow is it's actually up today, but it had the largest loss of the year yesterday. So, but the U.S. stock market is roaring. Our economy is roaring. We have record jobs numbers. We have near unemployment at 50-year lows. So we've done quite well, and the rest of the world has not.
Point well made. And I'm not going to get into an economic argument about I think the market is not booming, is doing quite well at the moment. Some people we've had on would argue that's a residual effect from Obama, and I think a lot of Republicans, again, we've spoken to, would argue that is all Trump manufactured. So
I think it's in between myself. We were doing pretty good under Obama, but the point remains the Dow's up something on the order of 30% since Trump took office. So.
What do you think the effect of all this activity, global activity in the international markets, is having on U.S. miners at the moment? We'll take uranium out of that for now.
Okay.
How do you think the rest of the guys are doing?
Well, gold miners are doing quite well worldwide. Gold right now is at another 6-year high. I think it's about 1470 this morning, August 6th. So and the encouraging thing about it to me is it's been now a month since it was below 1400. I think we built a very strong base at that lower 1400 level, and that's very encouraging. It's been quite good for the gold miners, from the small gold miners all the way up to the large gold miners. Their equities have increased 25 to 40%. It has not filtered down to my niche in the market, which is, for the most part, is the gold explorers, the advanced gold explorers. And there's probably good reasons for that. It's the summer doldrums, number one, and these juniors, low liquidity juniors, always have tough times during the summer months. So I think the market is probably waiting, because these are really high risk, high reward stocks, very risky, about the riskiest things you can do in a marketplace. So perhaps everybody's waiting to see if this is going to hold after Labor Day, first Monday of September. I think even in the UK is Labor Day or something. I don't know quite what you call it, but if we can get through the month of September, then there's macroeconomic reasons to think that gold is going to do quite well.